REI USA welcomes you in to our very special sponsor webinar tonight. Looking very forward to this with Kyle Moody from American IRA. We will get to that in just a moment. Did want to remind you about things coming up with REI USA practically every night. Tomorrow night at actually 6:30 Eastern, so just over 24 hours from now, George Ann's song. The expert investor will be doing an hour or so on buy, fix, and flip on Friday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Mike Watkins, who's actually on with us tonight, taking it all in. He'll be doing his next session of Wholesaling 101 and providing some great strategies on how to best analyze properties, which could definitely fit in with what we're going to be talking about tonight. On Monday, Stacy Rossetti will be doing her presentation at this time at 6 o'clock Eastern on Monday, how to buy your first storage facility in the next 90 days. And also following that at around 7 o'clock or so Eastern time on Monday, we've got Mike McKenzie will be talking about the ABCs of remotely investing in land. So that's raw land. So that's just some of what we've got coming up. And let's see here on the 21st, Lynette Fitzpatrick will be back and she's going to talk about rehabbing on a budget. On the 22nd of March, luxury short-term rentals with Rachel Gainsborough. So quite a few things coming up, and invite you to check that out on the REI-USA.com website. But now I want to get right into our the main event. Let's go for it. Self-directed IRAs and how it just all the positives as far as your personal investing and learning about it. So we're fortunate. We've lined up Kyle Moody, who's the business development specialist with American IRA, and Kyle's got a whole presentation. So enough of me. Let's bring in Kyle, and as you have questions, you can either send them to me or put them in the chat, and we will be having several times when we'll be getting to your questions tonight. So we definitely want this to be interactive. So Kyle, welcome to our group.
Thank you so much for having me, David. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm just going to go ahead and get this set up for us. So can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again. And as David said, I am Kyle Moody. I'm with American IRA, and I'm located in our Asheville, North Carolina office here in the mountains of North Carolina. And we also have an office in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that office houses our president, Sean McKay, who's also on with us this evening. You may hear him chime in on a couple of things to kind of bolster some points that I'm making. And the great thing about that is that we bring a team approach with what we like to do on things. And so it's great not to only have your boss on a presentation like this. Most people might be nervous with something like that, but I also consider it a real blessing when I can have not just my boss, but somebody that I consider a friend and a mentor to me as well, who has helped me with this content to be able to pass it on to you. And it's that type of experience that we want to make sure that you always benefit from if you're working with American IRA. Though we're based in the North Carolinas, we do have clientele across the United States and expats and internationally. My background, just really quickly, is in real estate sales. And then there's a bio. I don't know if David had shared that with the group, but real estate sales. And then that kind of transitioned into property management. I managed a real estate company in Asheville for a number of years, learned the investing techniques of our investors that had self-directed accounts on that end. And that's when I started getting recruited by American IRA, where I've been the past 5 years. So that's enough about me. So who is American IRA? Well, we're known as a third-party administrator, and basically that means we are record keepers of accounts, and that is we're providing services on behalf of the custodian, which is New Vision Trust, completely lineal company, and we are fully integrated, not a fiduciary, but fully integrated, as we are co-owned by the same individual, which is our founder, Jim Hitt, who started American IRA in 2004. And then New Vision Trust came along in 2018. As you see there, that number actually might even be going up as we speak, but over $500 million in assets that we take care of folks across the country. And one of the most important things to know about our company and anyone across the industry is that we are not really permitted to be doing any advising. So we are not going to give any legal, financial, or tax advice, offer suggestions or opinions on anything. Rather, we pride ourselves on industry-leading education, information that we are sending your way for you to really have the tools necessary if you're going to use this type of account for your investing. You're going to see tonight, and maybe you have heard, some of the rote fundamental talks from either other companies, or you've been in certain programs and you've heard this. You're going to hear some of the fundamentals, and it's really going to get into some more advanced techniques. Again, not advising on those techniques, but just something that you will see is possible with your self-directed account. So wherever you are on your journey right now, if you are new out of the gate, and this is maybe even be your first meeting, and you're even learning what a third-party administrator is, what a self-directed account is, you're right where you need to be on this. I'm going to touch on that, and you can see how that creativity can start with that type of account. And then really the bigger things that you can do as you move forward, or after a few years, or the folks that become part of your circle. Either way, when you couple the knowledge that we love to share with our clientele and perspectives, along with the low set fees that we have, immediately you find that you have an extreme all-around value to your self-directed portfolio in whatever area you're looking to use it. So we want to give you that value for your portfolio, and that's actually what you should be looking for as well. Time is money. Knowledge is power. And so the one thing they don't make a lot of anymore is time. And so what can you really benefit from in programs like this, on phone calls with me or someone else in our company? Those are things that you really want to consider when you're listening to these types of programs. You see on here where it says the local bank feel, and the reason we have that in there, we all like either walking into a restaurant, walking into a bank, walking into somewhere where we know somebody. We always want to do business with people that we like. And it seems that all too often, especially in the past 2 years, 2.5 years, relationships are coming back around. You're going to see low fees here in just a second. Some people will tell you it doesn't matter, how much an account costs, and they'll tell you that until they start paying really high amounts. But the one thing that I have found lately that means more to them is when a real person picks up the phone instead of hearing a phone tree. Well, all we have is real people, and we don't have any phone trees. And when you start working with our company, the great thing is you're going to have your very own transaction coordinator. That is your go-to person that when you start your first transaction or when you start your 10th transaction. That is the person that you get to email directly. They know you by name. You're not just a number. And we place a lot of value on that. So regarding the fees, there's a couple of different ways to look at fees out there, or that companies will price things. Either they're going to give you an overall account value, or they may charge in a way that's called an AUM, or an asset under management value. I've got a couple of those examples listed here, and these aren't just guesstimations. These aren't just hypothetical numbers. These are numbers from competitors out there. American IRA, 285 a year, just right in the door on some things. And at a later time, if you want to schedule a call with me, you're going to have some information at the end of this presentation, and we can really delve into this in depth here. But you will find that at a certain account value, whether it's low, whether it's high, with us, same price. You're going to automatically see with some of the competitors out there what those price differences are. Other companies may say, oh, well, if you don't want that graduated fee, then we also have an AUM fee, let's say. And at $295 a pop, if you've got, three assets in there, well, it's obvious you're already at $900. If you have, multiple notes, a couple of houses, cash, whatever, you're looking at over $2,000, where we don't penalize our clients from the work that you did to grow that account. So whether you are brand new to the game and you have just done your first contribution and you're under 50 years old, so you got $6,000 sitting there, an account that starts at 285, and your account takes off, and that 6,000 becomes 600,000. Guess what? It's still just 285 a year. We are not the advisors, remember, so we don't charge like that. And that's really important for you to know. So you've really heard me talk about it. You can head over to our website and look at some things, but don't just take my word or our word for it. This screen right here is showing you what the public is saying. Better Business Bureau rating, it can't get any higher. And we're very proud of that. We'll have that displayed on our table when we're doing a presentation either at a RIA meeting or at a conference or something like that. And then, high Google star ratings as well. Both at the end of this or anytime you've spoken with me on the phone, quite honestly, when you become a client and you really see that talent, not just here in my talk, I'm part of the onboarding staff, but when you have the time to really spend with our operations staff and your transaction coordinator, you are always welcome to go in and leave some notes or those pats on the back. Trust me, they make it to us, and we really appreciate that. These next couple of slides are going to be great for the newer folks in the group. Okay. Dave told me before we got started tonight really what some of the audience is made up of, and how there might be some folks who are learning, starting out on their first deal. They're trying to find their way in really what your niche is. And I would tell you that that's one of the most important things years ago, before I even was with American IRA, when I was in the real estate side of investing. And there was a guy at one of our RIA meetings here in Asheville, and he said, you know what? He said, you can spend a lot of money trying to figure out what your niche is. He said, figure out what that niche is before you really get in. He said, because if you have tons of niches, then you're not going to have the tons of money at the end. So figure out what direction you want to go in, what works for you, what do you have maybe an underlying knowledge of, or what's one thing or two things maybe that you really want to learn about. So these are just some of the options that someone can use with their self-directed IRA. And everything from just raw land. Do you know a developer or any type of development that is going to be going on that you want to use that for? Is it something that you want to sit on and flip? Anything from the real estate of single family homes or commercial buildings. whether it's a note that you're doing on something, or lending out funds so that someone can do a real estate deal. Are you looking to maybe do a syndication, which you will see later on this evening, in the form of investing into an LLC that's going to go after an apartment building or something like that? Depending on the state that you're in, tax liens and deeds and so on and so forth, and then getting the properties on the courthouse steps. You can also invest into, unlike the stock market, which is going to be more of your public investing, public stocks. Here, you can also invest in privately held companies. But one of the things in the RIA, most of the time that we're going to be talking about in the RIA meetings, is going to be the strategies dealing with real estate. And so, it's good to know that someone can call me and say, I'm looking to do a real estate deal. Okay, well, I will really take the time to break down and see, well, what is that real estate deal looking like? What kind of funds are we talking about? Is this going to be an all cash deal? What are your thoughts on how you're going to be structuring everything? And what's actually interesting is, and this actually, it's not just for the newcomers to the group. This can sometimes happen with a seasoned investor. They may hear of a deal that's going on and they've been told what they're going to be investing in, and they'll call me and they'll say, hey, I'm getting into this real estate deal. Well, I don't just pump the brakes, but it's all about the questions and the answers, and really just seeing, again, that value that we are adding to your strategy, your scenario. And you may find out that it's not a real estate deal at all. This person is going to end up lending money to someone who's going to get into a real estate deal. You may find that it's going to, well, somebody wanted me to, invest in this one company, and then they're going to be going out and buying an apartment building. Okay, well, so now we're looking at more of a syndication deal where you are investing in as a limited partner into an LLC. Then that is going into doing the real estate investing. So that first phone call is critical in really finding out exactly, what you're doing, how we're going to assist you, and work together to really get you on the right track that you need to be on. So I just want to take a second here before we really get into what some of the options really look like, because that is where we're going to then really parlay into how those options will break off into a couple of simple explanations or examples, and then really get into the deeper ones. So is there anybody that has any questions yet on, just really opening an account, what that's like, maybe the process of it, anything on the fees that you saw there, which I'll come back around at the end and put those fees back up. But just any questions yet that anybody might have?
Yeah, there are, Kyle. Actually, not quite on the operation part of it, but on the slide that you've got up there now. Sheldon asking, and that is an interesting question, that with wholesaling being listed as one of the options, saying, how is that possible if you technically, when you're wholesaling, you do not own the property, and this is supposed to be investing in real estate? So what is the difference? In other words, how are you able to do these things? And that's a great question.
Well, no, it's what we talked about, is that someone may think or find that, kind of like what I had just said, and thank you for that question, that how, I thought I was supposed to hold real estate, the real estate itself. Well, again, it might not always be that. You may be, and I know you asked specifically about wholesaling, but you actually may be lending to someone else who's going to be doing a real estate deal. Well, though you thought you were getting into a real estate deal, that person's the one getting into the real estate deal. What you've done, you have now turned your retirement account into the bank, and you've been the private lender to that individual who's holding the real estate. So see, that's the great thing, is that it doesn't always have to be about the real estate itself. Wholesaling, well, as you know, wholesaling, somebody who gets into the deal, is really getting into it with just a small amount of money. Now, that may bring a larger return, but the money that's going into the wholesaling deal must originate from the self-directed account. Once that deal culminates and then all that profit comes back, a few hundred to get in, a 5-figure profit coming back out, it's all coming back into the retirement account where that profits. So take what you know about the wholesaling, and you're right, you don't end up with the property, but the monies that go in, the monies that come back out, and what you profit on, it all has to do with the account. It doesn't always have to have the piece of real estate sitting with the custodian as the asset.
Okay, we're good for now. And again, if you have questions, you can either send them directly to me or put them in the chat. But we want to go on with Kyle's presentation. Kyle?
Great. So this is where we're going to get into a simple enough slide here. There's a lot of information here. So I'm going to go through this one a little quickly, but then we're going to break out what some of these examples might be like. So option one here, this is where it's as clean as it gets, is where you can hear kind of like what I just said a minute ago. Someone that uses their IRA to invest in something 100% owned by the IRA. In this example here, you're looking at the IRA using something all cash, going in and buying that piece of property right there. Okay. Option two, you see the guy that looks like the banker there. This can be anyone or anything or any entity. And this is where your IRA is going to partner in some sort or fashion with someone or something that is going then to that one other person or that group is going to go in and then buy an entity, an asset in all cash. Examples of this, you may hear of the joint venture, the partnering. You may be partnering with other IRAs, individuals, other entities, as we said, qualified and disqualified parties. Now, we don't have the time tonight for me to really go into the difference in qualified and disqualified parties. That is actually going to be something very important for someone to know, that we really can come back together on a call if you think that, hey, I'd like to do business with my son, my mother, or my father, or a brother, a sister, a friend, a business partner. These are things that if that's what you're looking to partner with someone to get in on some real estate deals, and when you want to use your IRA, I'll be more than happy to have a follow-up phone call with you on that, because that's just and the timing of when these folks can work together and how the partnering of those funds can work. Option three, this is money coming from another source. And whether it's going to be, a banking institution, a hard money lender, and that's going to, and then the IRA is going to use those funds to go in and buy something. Now, whether the IRA is going to be the sole owner of this, or whether it's going to be part of a group, and then there's going to be some type of borrowing on that. That's what option three would be like on that. So again, option one is always going to be your cleanest, most streamlined. Option two is going to be more of the partnering or the joint venturing, where a couple or a group of folks is going to go in all cash to hold an asset. And then option three is where there's going to be outside money coming in that the IRA is going to use to purchase an asset. This right here is really just breaking out number one, and just touch on this. The IRA, someone says, hey, Kyle, and this is actually one of the calls we get the most of. Hey, Kyle, I want to roll over an old 401k that I have. I've got about $200,000 sitting in that. I've got this house that I have found. Of course, I don't know where these houses are anymore, but for about $120,000. Want to be able to use that, maybe put about 30,000 into it, fix it up, get it rent ready. Have already got my property manager lined up, and I want the IRA to own it 100%. Can I do that? Without question, open up the account. The next thing you know is that the monies roll in from the outbound custodian. They now have that $200,000 sitting there in cash in the account. They're going to identify the property, work with an agent if they need to, what have you. And then we make the purchase of the property. We move the money. Someone's not taking a distribution of the cash, going out and buying the property, therefore triggering a taxable event. This is going to be something where everything is at the direction of our client. So client does all the due diligence, gets his paperwork put together, works with the transaction coordinator. The investment kit is good to go. Everything's gone through compliance. Everything's nice and clean. And then at the day of closing, we wire the funds from the trust account into the attorney's office, where the property is then acquired and then held by the custodian again, which is New Vision Trust. Now that person may have, they got $80,000 in cash and a property sitting there that they're going to put $30,000 into to upfit that property, and that $30,000 is also going to come directly from the IRA. So now the IRA has a $150,000 property that's sitting there, all cash, with $50,000 left over in the account to either do some notes on some things, have money sitting there for a rainy day on that property, and so that's the example of that. Now, going forward, I do want to say, you're going to hear me say that on another group of things that we're going to cover, but going forward, not all of these are going to be for everybody in the group. There might be some folks that are looking to do this. So, but it's great information, again, for you to have, to put in your toolbox. And then we can discuss this further on a call if you want to learn more about it. This is going to be what we call the syndication. So you heard me allude to it a couple of times, and this is going to be really an example of option two from earlier. Now, here in this example that we have, Maria, Steve, and Manny are looking to raise funds for a 200-unit apartment complex in Atlanta. Okay. Now, just so I'm clear, the specifics are not critical on this, but as you look at this also, there's really two types of folks that you're going to fall into, two types of groups that you're going to fall into to do this deal. You're either going to be Maria, Steve, or Manny, who's raising the funds. In this case, they're looking for a $9 million down payment, and they want to raise 8.7. So you're going to be targeting folks to get the money from to raise for the down payment, or you're going to be the person that Manny, Steve, and Maria are looking for to raise the funds. Either way, the retirement account is going to end up being the most powerful tool that, quite honestly, a lot of fund managers, syndicators, if you will, are seeing that, hey, this is how we or what we need to tap and teach people that they can use these funds to grow this money. And I'll tell you why. Because as you see here, when people first think somebody comes to somebody for money or they want to get into something, first thing they do is what? They go to their credit union. They're pulling up their bank information on the phone and they're looking to see how much money they have in the checking account or savings or what have you. How much do I have in stock that I can, cash out, get some money and go invest in something, right? Well, the issues with that is that how many folks do you know that just have $250,000 sitting there? If they do, great, wonderful. Chances are this day and time, that's not there. And if it is, then what are they really saving that for? Okay. It's, is there a health issue? Aging folks in the family, kids going to college, things that they really have already planned for, and that's what that money is for. So everyone's still left scratching their heads of, well, where am I going to get my money from? And then the syndicator is going to say, man, where are we going to tell folks to look for this money? Well, in comes the self-directed IRA. When they start informing their network, when the folks here, Maria, Steve, and Manny, start informing their network, hey, do you have an old 401k? You have an old 403b, a TSP? Yeah, I've got that. Some of it may be rolled over to a rollover IRA. Others may just still be sitting in 401k status. Ultimately, what they will find, they actually being either side of this, the investor or the syndicator, is that that's where the bulk of the money is going to be sitting. Now, the beauty of this is, again, that those funds are what's able to be used to invest into this LLC, into this syndication deal to be part owner, if you will, or percentage into this apartment complex. Okay. Also, when you think about it, funds that are sitting in someone's bank account, if they've already got that earmarked for something else, they're going to be using that soon. Whereas the funds sitting in a retirement account is something that, especially ages of folks, if they're 30 or 40 years old, well, that money is going to be sitting there for a lot longer than money in a checking account. So this type of cash that's sitting there that someone can use, they're going to stay in your deal longer because that money is just not going to be pulled out of the retirement account. Remember, the money is directed directly out of the retirement account to be used for the investment, and any profits from that is not going back into the pockets of the investor. It must come back into the retirement account where that's going to grow. So that's where that money is always going to stay in there. Now, what this basically is, and I won't get into the minutia of the attorney putting all this together, but ultimately an LLC is going to be created, and almost looking like this big circle right here that you see, the mechanics of the deal. Well, on the outside of this circle, there's going to be smaller circles, and you can almost put LPs in those little circles, and that's going to be the limited partnership, and that is who either you, our client, will be, or who the person that is the fund manager who's directing this LLC that's looking for the investors. That's where those funds are going to be coming from. The great thing is that, well, let me back up and just say this. Each one of those retirement accounts being a percentage of the dollars that are going into the investment of the LLC, it's a specified percentage on that. And whatever that percentage is going in will also be the percentage of any types of profits or dividends coming back out. While the project is in operation, you're going to see those dividends come in quarterly, biannually, annually. And so there's that cash flow. And then if the building were to sell, if this apartment complex, were to sell in a number of years, well, then the retirement accounts are also going to benefit with a profit that is gained from the sale of that property as well. Remember when I said I don't advise? Well, this is where we take that even to the next level. These are going to be, the best way for me to put it is, we are not advising you. We're not suggesting that you even utilize these types of tactics with your self-directed IRA. We're bringing these to your attention tonight because these are some of the creative deals that we have seen our clients straight up do. And we want you to know that this is the type of knowledge and information that can be shared with you at our company. And that someone will be there to really look at the deal, talk with you through your scenario, and really see if it's a viable or administratively feasible option that we can take on. There's not a lot of folks that are going to know that this is possible. There's not, and that's investor wise, and then there's not going to be a lot of folks out there in this industry that might know how to administer it. But that's why we wanted to bring it to you tonight. Again, not advising you on this. I'm just going to give you really a macro look at these. And then if we ever do need to really dig deeper, if you are looking to do something like this, then we can have a call outside of this presentation tonight and go from there. On the first one is going to be, now this is going to be more of the common, easier of this group, seller financing. Now this is where really you're looking for a piece of property, and instead of utilizing a banking institution or hard money lending, the seller of the property becomes the bank. Okay. So they are looking to basically finance a portion of your purchase. Now, what's important to know is that the IRA does have to have, skin in the game of some down payment. It can be, really as much as the seller wants, as little as you want to pay. It's negotiable. So whatever that is going, whatever that number is going to be, that's going to be the down payment that the IRA really does need to bring on this deal. Easy example right here. Your IRA is going to purchase the single family home from the landlord for 150. Seller wants 15,000 down. That money is going to come directly from your retirement account, and we're going to send that to the seller so they have that money, and then he's going to be financing it for the remainder of the time. Your retirement account. Now, remember, not you personally. Your retirement account is going to own this property, and as such, we would be making the payments out of that account to that seller every month. You're going to see this example manifested in another strategy that we talk about in a little bit, and that's why I chose to have it here. So that you're going to remember this, just call this gray house here with the red shutters. This is going to be property one here in the next little bit, and that's going to be a really cool move that you're going to see what you can do with your self-directed account. This is your retirement account. You worked hard for this money. In deals like this, everything's negotiable. You're going to have a meeting of the minds with the seller on basically everything here. I mean, it's real estate, purchase price, whatever that down payment is going to be, as we already discussed, the rate and the terms of the loan. Everything is able to be negotiated, discussed, so that by the time you get your entire packet put together, amortization schedule and so on and so forth, we're making those payments out for you every month on that property. And again, the right of first refusal is also going to be negotiated. So just remember on that someone comes to the seller or they're looking for cash on something, you're always able to match that, give a little bit more. If the note gets sold, all of those terms have to be adopted, basically assumed. So the only thing that might change for you in this case, pardon me, the only thing that may change for you is, well, on our end too, is where we're sending the money. Excuse me. How are we doing on questions so far, David?
Yeah, I do have actually one that was asked, you answered right as I was reading it, but the other one goes back to your last part on talking about LLCs. And so Julie asked, do you need multiple LLCs when you're investing with a self-directed IRA? Or do you have one LLC, I guess, to carry it out? The question, do you have one LLC that would cover, handle your investments, or I guess, how does that work with LLCs and different investments?
Right. Okay, Julie, that's a great question. And I'm going to answer this question and expand a little bit on it, especially with some new information that's out there that we're sharing with folks, and they're calling in. The first thing that I want to say, and again, I'm not advising you when I give you this answer. I'm just really giving you some good factual information out there. Depending on if you've talked to other people or what they may say, if the LLCs that I was talking about earlier are ones that you can invest into. So an LLC that's part of a syndication where you are investing money into that LLC is buying a piece of real estate of some sort that is popping off dividends. Those dividends are what's coming back in and growing in your retirement account. So that's an investment into a private entity, for example. Okay. Your actual question comes across what I get a lot sometimes. Kyle, I've got to hurry up and get my account set up. I've already got an LLC going, and I want to buy real estate and hold it in that LLC. Or, hey, Kyle, I'd like to set up my account, and then I need to hurry up and get my LLC set up because I need to there's a piece of property that I want to get and put in my LLC. And I will actually stop the person. We'll do whatever somebody wants. But again, this is where we're really asking some questions and saying, okay, I just want to find out with the way they ask it. Have you spoken with someone in the past? Did you ever think that you had to have an LLC to hold real estate inside of an IRA? And inevitably, most of the times I'm going to get, well, yes, I think if I'm going to have an IRA, I have to have an LLC. Now, whether the legal reasons or whatever that someone wants an LLC, that's a different discussion, and I really don't get into that since it's legal. But what I will tell you is this: is that an LLC is not required to hold real estate in a self-directed IRA. If you wanted to have an LLC for any reason, that not only are we one of the few companies left that will allow the use of an LLC, we actually have an in-house sister company that can create that LLC for you. There's a new twist to this that we're being very proactive as we're seeing really what LLCs are going to look like in the future, or language that's out there about what you can and can't do with them. In the past, you would have heard me say, hey, your IRA is going to be the single member to this LLC, and then the account holder is able to be the manager. No longer am I saying that last part. We will say that if you would like to have an LLC inside of an IRA, we will do that, but you're going to actually have to have a non-disqualified third-party manager to now be the manager of that LLC. Now, where that LLC is held at the banking institution of your choice, in that you can have multiple pieces of property, you can have notes, you can have everything that's going on in that LLC. So now, to make a short answer really long, you don't have to have multiple LLCs, depending on really what you're looking to do, property, loans, and such. You really don't have to have an LLC at all. It's not a requirement. So hopefully that took care of your question. Okay. Now this is one too that we don't jump up and down and say, hey, you got to do this. But again, another creative thing that someone is able to do with their property. As we discussed, and as you've seen, again, whether you're seasoned or whether you're new, one of the first things to remember is that your IRA can buy property 100% cash. Okay. What happens if your account doesn't have the 100% cash? What happens if you now need to use what cash you have in your account as a down payment, and then you need to borrow the rest. Well, remember, it's not you borrowing it, it's the retirement account borrowing it, okay? But you can't find the seller financing. You really don't want to go through a banking institution. And in one of these off-market deals, you find somebody that's looking to do subject to a sub to, okay? This is where your IRA is going to go in and purchase the property. Again, the subject property. The seller still has a mortgage on said property, and they're going to keep it in their name, keep the mortgage in their name. So you're buying the property subject to that existing financing staying in place. Okay, here's what it looks like. So you see the house over here. You and your IRA are going to go in and buy the house. So the house is going to be in the name of the IRA. The mortgage is going to stay in the name of that seller. And just to add a little bit to this right here, with the IRA now owning the property, we will also, American IRA, the operations staff, will also be making the mortgage payment to the actual lending company. The seller's not still, you're not, in other words, you are not paying a certain amount of money to the seller and then they're making the mortgage payment. Your IRA is now making the payment to the mortgage company. Okay. Now, with these 3 bullet points here of seller should, be aware that, hey, look, they still have a mortgage that they're paying in case they're going out looking for more big ticket items that they want to buy. So just something good for them to know. The attorney, insurance agent, so on and so forth, really everybody has to be totally on board and crystal in their role in what they're doing with this deal. And by that, I mean, you want to have an attorney specifically who understands exactly what you're getting ready to do. Find someone in your area who has done these before and knows exactly what you're doing. Because, for example, one of the things they have to do is taking care of the due on sale clause. Well, that's not happening in this case. So they're closing that property without that part taking place. Again, I'm leaving those conversations to you and the attorney in that case, okay? The insurance can get kind of wonky on that, but you just want to make sure that, again, the players that you choose for this deal are very important to this transaction. Okay? Now, okay, Kyle, you've told me about this. You've told me how specialized this is. Why in the world would I want to get in on this? Well, again, it's an off-market deal that you and your retirement account can really benefit from this. But remember, in a lot of real estate deals, that they tell us, real estate brokers, and when everybody's trying to, buy and sell and people are negotiating just the basics of things with a regular real estate transaction, everybody wants to come out so that, there's a good sell, the seller gets what they want, a buyer gets what they want. There's a meeting of the minds and everyone, moves on with their life. So, what is a seller really going through that they're going into this deal? Well, I mean, you look at some of these things and, quite honestly, the past couple of years, this has been going on, and it's probably going to pick up if people are going to figure out if they want to put gas in their truck or make their mortgage payment. But that's neither here nor there. Here, financial hardships, losses of jobs, they're going to move away, find another job, and they might not have the equity in that house. And so when I was really looking at a lot of this, I'm thinking of the days of the short sales. Somebody trying to sell something that the equity is just not there, but you come in. And with, again, this creative technique that you're able to use a retirement account to help this seller. And then, hey, look, one of the great things that ends up benefiting you've benefited them with, with purchasing the house, making the payments, again, stays in their name. But now the benefits to you is one of the things we didn't talk about the loans is that there's only one type of loan that you are able to get if you are borrowing with your retirement account to secure an asset, and that's called a non-recourse loan. That means that you aren't self-guaranteeing anything. You can't, because you're not going to own the property personally. Your retirement account does. And in a non-recourse loan, all parties are agreeing that the only remedy that the lender has is to take back the property itself. And you can say, well, Kyle, that's like that, in regular loans. Well, no, there's that, plus they can come after you personally and anywhere else that you've got money, including a retirement account, to make themselves whole. In a non-recourse, they can only take the property back. Well, in this case, you're not even have to worry about that. And then you're also not even have to worry about qualifying for a loan, because you are now taking over, or you've got this property. Yes, your retirement account's paying the loan, it stays in the seller's name, but then if you go to take this over, it might just be, a short loan at that point, just a few years. And so that is a huge benefit to you as well. Okay. So one of the last things that we're going to talk about, and this one's just cool. I really like this one. I remember when I was young in the business and really just watching how this worked. And Sean, if he's still on, he talked to me about this one, and I've taken notes on it multiple times, and I've watched him explain it. And if you watch Sean explain this in front of a dry erase board, it's a lot neater to see how this works. It's almost like watching a magician do something, but than really talking about it. So maybe at some point we'll have to break out dry erase boards. But on this one, the substitution of security and collateral, the street term on this one that I use is walk in the mortgage, walk in the note. Okay. And if you remember that house that I told you, that seller financed property, we were going to call that house one. This is where this one is coming into play now. So here you have negotiated with that seller on property one. He was a landlord. He sold the property to you. It's cash flowing well, and you've got a great debt instrument with that seller, and everything's going great. Right. But you actually, that house has increased in value, and you go, man, I'd really like to unlock some of that equity in that and use that for another purchase. And you go to the seller and you're like, hey, I'd like to see if we might be able to, now the seller's got to be on board with this, but I'd like to be able to move that mortgage from property one to another property that my IRA already owns. Okay, now this is the critical part about this. Property one is the one that was the seller financing that we talked about earlier. All right. So you got a great relationship going on with that seller, property's growing in value. And then what you're looking to do is move that mortgage from that property with the blessing of the seller to a second property that, and this is the important part, your IRA already owns, and in this case, owns free and clear. Okay. Now, the cool thing about this is what it's doing is, if there was another arrow that I had that was pointing further down and say property three, ultimately what you're doing is you're wanting to unlock the equity from property one now and use that on whatever the X factor is of property three. Generally speaking, it might be a larger type of project, a duplex, quadplex, something that's going to have, that's going to be probably the most expensive of the three that we would see here. Okay. So you're unlocking that equity to now use that directly in your new purchase, but you're not dumping the debt instrument that you have in the relationship with that seller. So in this case, again, you walk the mortgage, call it across the street over property two, unlocking the equity in property one. but you haven't lost that debt instrument. Now, these first three bullets here shows there's your note, how much is left, but now how much the property is worth. So this is where, if you're looking at the example here, this is where the numbers kind of fall in line. That house is now worth 250. Okay. So now you're short of closing costs and everything, you're looking at 235 to go in. And if I had whatever the unknown of property 3 would be, in this case, the 8-unit building. So it's higher price, but you need to be able to unlock the cash to come in, whether down payment, or really get into that deal. So again, just remembering the things that we discussed were seller financing, the subject to, walk in the mortgage, really those creative things. And then we, before we really got into the deeper ones, we talked about the syndication that you can get into, all of the ways that it's not always a piece of real estate. It can be, again, going in and being a percentage of a private entity, a private company that's buying a larger piece of real estate that you're benefiting from the dividends on that. Ultimately, it's an account that you were able to use in whatever niche that fits you, that you're really comfortable with, and that you're going to be able to grow that account with how you're working it. And then to also, again, for us to be there for you and work with you to assist you in that is what we're there for. We have this is really great as well. Sean, you've heard me talk about just what a wonderful orator he is on a myriad of topics. And so if you were to go to the Lousy Investor, it's our YouTube channel, you will hear him deliver a lot of webinars, podcasts, and talk about everything from the drilled down fundamentals. So for anyone who's new in the group, whether this is your first meeting or you've got a few under your belt and you're really looking to, okay, yeah, some of these things were really high technical tonight. How can I kind of kick it back into first or second gear and really get my feet back underneath me on that one? You're going to be looking for the fundamentals talk that he's doing, or if you give me a call or shoot me an email, we can talk through that. Talks can go anywhere from 12-20 minutes up to an hour. If it's something where we want to put together an application so that you can at least get started, we can knock out the application in 10 to 15 minutes. Just a couple of uploads on that, and it's an online document that we do. If you mentioned that you were part of this tonight, whether it's going to be the live version or even for the next 90 days, and you've listened to the recording, we're going to waive your setup fee to go ahead and get you started. And then just remember that we don't have any fees on cash only IRAs, so it really doesn't get any cheaper for anybody on this. And if you remember that 285 or even our unlimited at 450 on that, where you can do as many transactions as you want as well on any of our accounts, unlimited cash, unlimited assets, those fees are flat. They remain the same, and it's not going to grow with the activity of your account. So your anniversary date that starts with us is the day that you do your first transaction, and that's when we would assess your annual fee. But just again, remember that this is a snippet of the education and information you can glean from our company. Couple that with the low fees, that personal touch, that relationship that you have with our front office, with our operations staff, and your very own transaction coordinator. And it's always a pleasure to work with folks and see really how creative they can get with their deals. And hopefully we're going to have a chance to do that with you soon.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. We are closing in on our time here, unfortunately, because there's so much to get to. One of the questions that I think we just have time for one more, but the one I think that is the shortest answer, and does touch on something that we didn't quite get into, and that's Lewis, who asked, can I withdraw from my IRA investing in real estate before I retire? So I take that to mean, they hit a big deal, they would want some money for themselves. Can they withdraw, or how does that work?
Sure. I'm going to give you the, of course, self-directed answer. Ultimately, I will say that, Lewis, you're going to want to check in with your CPA for anything that's really tax related. They'll give you, they're going to be the sand in between the pebbles that I'm getting ready to give you on this one. The answer is, it's your money. You earned it. If you've got it in your retirement account, can you take that out before you retire? Yes. Well, what is retirement age? The numbers that you want to consider yourself or consider on this is 59 and a half. Regardless if it's a Roth or a traditional IRA, we'll really talk about a traditional IRA for a second. If it's a traditional IRA, you need to be 59 and a half before you can take money without a penalty. Okay. Anytime you do take money from a traditional IRA, you're only being taxed for the amount that you're taking out at that time. Okay. So remember, any of the profits that your properties are making, you're not being taxed on those profits when they come back in, only when you take that out in the form of a distribution. But yes, you can take a distribution before you retire. If you are under 59 and a half and you take that distribution, then you could also be subject to what's called the early withdrawal penalty. Okay. So these are the things that you're going to want to discuss with your CPA really quickly. If you've got a Roth account, it's the same. There's two things that you must have to be able to take the money without penalty. The money has to be vested for 5 years in the account, and you have to be 59 and a half. If you pull that out beforehand, well, then technically you're not paying a taxable penalty on it because the taxes were paid before the funds ever went in. But if it was in there for less than 5 years, then yeah, you could face an early withdrawal penalty on that. And again, your CPA will go into that with you further. A good question.
Okay, thank you very much. Great answer. Appreciate everybody's participation. And even if you didn't participate, hopefully you got a lot out of this. I know I did, and I already have a self-directed IRA. Kyle Moody, Business Development Specialist with American IRA. We thank you so much for presenting to our group, and hopefully we'll get to do this again very soon. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember all the resources for REI USA. Have a good night.